Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, teacher of things, reader of books, and in honor of the Mighty Ducks getting rebooted, Cake Eater. I don't know if anybody ever saw Mighty Ducks and know that Cake Eater is an insult, but I thought that was kind of a good one. I actually quite like cake. If I'm being honest, I like all things sweet. It's wearer of hats. Armagerd Burks. I did love the Goosebumps series, which, of course, in the original Ermagerd meme, the young lady is holding Goosebumps books. I had the majority of that series, and it was hard for me sometimes as a kid to convince my parents to buy me something like a $5 action figure. But I could convince them to buy me a $4 book that I would, of course, then go home and devour in like 2 or 3 sittings. So you've always hated books. Well, that's okay, Moose. We average out. I read pretty slowly. Well, I read pretty slowly as a kid, but it's because I had undiagnosed dyslexia, and I figured out somewhere around junior high that I was not actually reading words in the sort of right way. I was more or less memorizing the shape of the words, which is one of the reasons why I'm still such a bad speller today. Because I know sort of how the word looks, but like tall letters, like lots of L's and I's and T's, those always mess me up. And letters that are double letters, those mess me up too when I spell. But anyway, that's too much about me. Hope everybody's doing well. The show is Adventures in History. We talk about historical stuff. We make jokes. We goof off. We have lots of fun. And tonight we are doing a viewer request episode. Let me make sure that I've said hello to everybody. Hello to Brittany. Hey, KP, how's it going? That sounds familiar. Like what, memorizing like the shapes of words and things? Yeah, that was how I read for the majority of my young life. Hey, Fit, how's it going? I'm glad that I just saw your name. I need to do something real quick. Okay, so yeah, we're doing a viewer request episode, and this is an episode whose topic was chosen here by our actual viewers. In a poll a couple of weeks ago, our viewers chose the Contras, and this has, of course, nothing to do with the video game, but I figured I would just own it. Hey, Lava Mamba, how's it going, my friend? Welcome. And so I titled tonight's stream Left, Right, which actually has a very appropriate application to our discussion. So it's going to show up and it's going to be worthwhile, but it also, of course, has that good old-fashioned inside pun. Just woke up from a long nap. That sounds delightful. I did not take a nap today. Contratenors or contraltos, perhaps. I took a nap a couple of days ago, and when I woke up, I felt so much worse than I did prior to actually having the nap. I don't know what was going on. Usually, I could take like a 20-minute or so nap and wake up and feel okay, but it did not do so well for me last time. So that's how you're feeling right now. I call it rebooting my operating system, because it took me about 30 or 45 minutes to even feel like I was some sort of like cognizant function. Hey Vern, how's it going, my friend? I did not say hello specifically to you, so let me make sure that I do that. Did I mistype the contra code? No, it's up, down, left, right, BA. But it's just left, right. That particular part has an application. And it's the Konami code. You had a sinus headache all day. That sucks. I hate those things. I've had a bit of one myself. I think it's mostly just due to the pressure changes. We've had a lot of fronts moving through the last couple of days, and the air pressure has changed very, very rapidly. Hey, Calm Heart. Only REM sleep is needed, and you don't get that with a 20-minute nap. Yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe I was just going down into REM sleep, and then I woke up, and it was just like, no, what are you doing? You know what I mean, Vern? Well, we'll stay away from that particular reference. Anyway, so welcome everybody. Hey, David. I hope other than the sinus infection, you've had a good day. I think I said, hey, Calm Heart, but hello, Calm Heart. I need to make sure that I'm saying hello to everybody and taking a moment to greet everybody. Okay, so we are talking about the Contras tonight, and this is an interesting group of people, and they don't come out of nowhere. See, that's the thing that a lot of people, like, oh, let's talk about the Contras. And I struggled a lot with exactly where to begin this particular stream, because the world that the world that produced the Contras is one that stretches well back into history. And if we just started talking about stuff in the 1980s, it really wouldn't make sense. We would have to pause and then back up and explain a lot of stuff as we were going. So I knew that I needed to start before the Contras and then kind of work our way up there. But I had some trouble thinking about how far back do I go? Do I go all the way back to the 1500s when the Spanish were there? Do I show up in the 1700s, or when Mexico is becoming independent, or what are the Contras? The Contras were a paramilitary organization inside of the country of Nicaragua that was attempting to overthrow the government of a man named Daniel Ortega. So to give us a good reference here, let's go ahead and zoom in on the map and find Nicaragua, which is here. It is situated sort of in the middle part of Central America here, and it has a couple of pretty important geographic features. Most notably, there are, if I can zoom in right, there are waterways that stretch pretty far into Nicaragua on both sides, which of course makes it an interesting position for what might be some transoceanic trade, which we'll talk about. And it also has a lot of rainforest, especially here in the north, that is very, very rugged into the mountains, which is a good place for rebels to hide, especially here on the border with this country is Honduras and the country here, El Salvador. So, important things to remember. And there's your sort of minor geography lesson for the night. And we'll talk about some geography stuff. So it was some kind of CIA pet project. Yes. It arose, or they're Contras is plural. They're actually a couple of different large groups that sometimes work together and other times were different, or set at odds with each other. But yes, they arose individually and then were funded and pushed on by the United States. The Legend of Ollie North's Gold. Oh, that's a bad one, but also a really good one. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, and we're not going to go all the way back to the native people of Nicaragua. We're going to start in 1838, and in 1838, the country of Nicaragua is going to finally become independent. The Spanish had claimed them in 1502. They had set up colonies there in the 1520s. The Spanish were going to retain control all the way until the late 1700s, when there were some rumblings. The Mexican independence movement in the 1820s is going to also do a lot for Central America, but then put them under Mexican rule for a couple of years. Then there's going to be this sort of larger country called the Federated Countries of Central America, which is essentially the countries on the map that we're looking at right here, minus Panama. But in 1838, Nicaragua breaks away from that country and declares itself independent. And there are sort of two big power bases inside of Nicaragua. There are a lot of people that would consider themselves liberals. These are highly educated individuals that are sort of forward-thinking, perhaps Enlightenment thinkers, and they're based around the city of Leon. And there are a lot of really conservative individuals who are based in the city of Granada that are very closely reminiscent of the Spanish hierarchy. They have a lot of close ties with the Catholic Church. These are very, very conservative individuals that are going to have a lot of old, what we might call imperial style leanings. And it's these imperialists or these conservatives that are going to take over in Nicaragua. And they're going to rule for about 30 years, fairly unchecked. And during this period of time, the status quo inside of Nicaragua is going to be fairly, the only real way of saying this is that it looks a lot like a feudal structure. There are a few people that have a lot of money, that control a lot of land, and a lot of people are stuck doing agricultural work. And especially things like fruit production are going to be very big, but there's also a substantial amount of lumber harvest. Along the coastline of Nicaragua are some of the larger deposits originally of mahogany wood. And that's going to be a luxury item, of course. So you have agriculture, you also have slavery, which is going to be eventually outlawed right around the end of the 50s, but make a comeback in just a bit. And things are not going to be so great for the majority of people inside of Nicaragua. Seems fair. I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus. 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 Thank you, KP. Much appreciated, my friend. You are Spartacus. You may or may not be Spartacus. I could potentially be Spartacus. My availability of Spartacus can neither be confirmed nor denied. Seriously, thank you, KP. Much appreciated. And thank you to all of those who are even just hanging out. Your presence is very much appreciated. I enjoy spending time with you cool people every night, or every time that I get to come on here. So, I am not Spartacus. You ran away. Oh, magnificent. Well, that's actually probably the wiser decision, because Spartacus and all of his buddies ended up crucified. So, you're severely lagged. Oh man, Vern, I'm sorry. Is the stream lagging? It's not showing me any negative signs that makes it look like it might be lagging. However, it didn't do that last time I streamed, and it cut my stream in the middle. Is anybody else having any lag issues? Or any audio, or is my camera freezing? I can move rapidly side to side. Hey Asa, how's it going? And hello, Magnificent. Welcome. No issues? Okay. Vern, it might be the refresh button as your friend. But Twitch and Amazon have both been really weird for the last couple of days. It's Thursday, so I'm lagging by almost a day. Hey Joey, how's it going, my friend? Welcome. I didn't know it was Thursday. If it were Thursday, I would have been much less involved this morning. Tomorrow is my last day of teaching, well, my last day of work before the holiday break, so I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I was having that same sort of issue, Moose, where I was typing and I would hit enter and uh, it would either flag me or it would say that I had submitted it, and then it would pop up like a couple of seconds later. So, internet is wonky, but hopefully we can all band together and push forward. Okay, so the situation in Nicaragua was not going so great for the majority of the people. And the conservative government was not particularly very interested in a lot of things like universal voting rights. They were also not a big thing of equal protection under the law. And in 1853, there is going to be a period of time where the conservatives begin to really exert their control. They had taken over the majority of the government by that point, and they started using their political power to push individuals that were from the Democratic and Liberal parties out of local positions. And what they were effectively trying to do was create a solid, unified country where every person in political power was part of this conservative party. And this isn't going to go very well with the liberal crowd. And they're going to start looking for aid. And one of the things that is important for us to understand during this period of time is that Nicaragua, being in Central America, is a very important thing to this country right here, the United States. The United States during the 1800s was building an empire. There's no other way to say it. It's the truth. The American foreign policy was, we are the biggest dogs in the block, and we will run politics in this hemisphere. Jamarianne, man, I want to be famous so badly, I can't even contain it. Like the impetus within me to just absolutely become famous, it's driving me crazy. And I'm so glad that she showed up to offer me that great deal, but I feel like you're not being 100% honest with me. It's okay, KP, and it happens. That stuff pops up like crazy. You couldn't go to the link. Oh, dang it, Moose. Now you can't be famous either. I apologize. If I can't be famous, nobody's being famous. That is absolutely a lie. There are people in the chat here that are significantly what I would call famous people. Anyway, so the slow motion coup, as Magnificent aptly described it, is going to trigger a lot of issues because the America that we live in, the United States of America, is actually quite pleased with this. They like this conservative, strong-arm government, and they don't like these leftist, liberal, full democracy people. And the United States is not going to necessarily directly support the conservative government in the form of, foreign aid or anything like that, but they're definitely going to aid them. They're going to make nice trade treaties with them. They're going to make sure that the Europeans try to treat Nicaragua very well. And this is going to create a link between the United States and Nicaragua. And this is one that's going to be very important for the rest of the night. And the liberals inside of Nicaragua are going to start looking for aid, and one of the places that they're going to look for aid is the United States. And they find help in one of the weirdest scenarios and individuals that you might ever hear. And this is going to be in the form of a guy named William Walker. And I have a photo of Mr. Walker here that we can go look at. This is William Walker. William Walker was originally from Tennessee. He believed in slavery. He was a proponent of strong central governments as long as he got to be in charge of them. And he was also a really big fan of American domination of basically everything in the Western Hemisphere. At one point in his life, he actually invaded Mexico and took over part of the Baja Peninsula, declaring himself president of a new country in Mexico. He was run out. He linked up with another guy named Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was at the time an incredibly wealthy industrialist and sort of railroad tycoon. And the liberals are going to offer Mr. Walker a deal that he, if he would help the liberal cause, could bring with him. Was he a government official or just some dude? He was just some dude. He just kind of ran in the right circles of knowing people. His legacy lives on in too many minds, unfortunately. That is accurate. Some dude with an army. Yeah, because he had a lot of money. And the liberals in Nicaragua reached out to William Walker and said, hey, here's the deal. If you come down to Nicaragua, you can bring with you some colonists, and we will give you some land, and you can set up a colony, but you've got to help us push these conservatives out. Well, guess what? William Walker brings down armed Americans, sets up his sort of little, I don't know, cadre? What do you want to call these people? His military units. He takes over the city of Granada, and then he decides, I'm now president. And he declares himself president of Nicaragua. And for about 2.5 years, well, I guess it's more about 1.5 years, he is effectively the president of Nicaragua. And it actually takes the combined forces of several of these countries, including Honduras and El Salvador, with Nicaraguans, to push this guy out. When he does get pushed out, the conservatives blame the whole thing on the liberals. And of course, the conservatives are then going to take back over control of the country. When politics was simple, no early ballot fraud. Well, you don't vote for this guy. Well, he actually did hold an election. He held a fraudulent election that he himself rigged personally with his army, and then declared himself the winner of the election that he rigged. But yeah, so William Walker, he was eventually run out of Nicaragua. He went back to the United States for a while, but then he went back to Central America, hoping to sort of reconstitute his power base. And he was actually caught in Honduras and executed in 1860. I mean, I hope he won his own rigged election. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Like, if you rig an election and lose, that would be pretty bad. So yeah, he ends up dead, and the conservatives, of course, are going to blame the liberals for this entire scenario, and they're going to hold on control. Laughs in 2020 election. Aww. There's failing at politics, and then there's that. Right? Okay, so the Conservative Party is going to take back over Nicaragua after this Civil War hubbub that lasts from 1853 to 1858. And then for the next 30 years, they're going to run the country exactly the same way. But here's the thing. Except for this little hiccup in a war that lasts about 5 years, they had been in control of Nicaragua at that point for about 60 years total. And by that point, even inside of the Conservative Party, there were people jostling for power, right? So there had been originally this one sort of unified Conservative Party, but by the time you got 60 years down the road, when this one party is dominating every single election and everybody knows who's going to be elected, you start seeing factions within the Conservative Party start showing up. And, you know, the party starts sort of eating itself from the inside out. And this is going to be prime time for a new challenger. Named Jose Santos Zelaya. And he, not William Walker here, he looks like this. This is Jose Santos Zelaya. And he is going to be the first liberal that gets any real power inside of Nicaragua. So if we are referring to our title tonight, this is the first left, right? So this is left. Things are moving left. I was honestly expecting a Smash Bros. Intro screen with that lead. A new challenger approaches. He wins the mustache election. He does have quite he's a bit of a mustache prodigy, I would say. That's a pretty powerful mustache. He wins the mustache award for tonight by all means. But he doesn't win the cool hat award. We'll talk about the cool hat award in a bit. Okay, so Jose Santos Zelaya. He's a liberal, and when he manages to get elected, he does so by exploiting the differences between these different factions of the Conservative Party. And he's going to take over, and he's going to push rapid change. He has a specific liberal agenda that he is pushing really, really fast. And among them are things like universal voting rights. When did he get elected? This is 1893. It's a great question. 1893. So universal voting rights. Everybody gets to vote. Equality under the law. He wins by a mustache hair. Maybe Trump lost his own rigged election, and that's the reason he can't believe he lost. Oh, shots fired. I don't know if I can answer that without putting on the opinion hat. So I might steer clear of that one, Joey. And, I mean, we could probably argue about that from either side. And I could argue about that from either side. I'm one of those people that can stand in the middle and make everybody upset. So, Zelaya has a lot of different programs. This voting stuff, equality under the law stuff. He has a whole bunch of constitutional amendments that he pushes through that guarantees equal rights, regardless of stuff like social status or gender. That's what I intended with my prior laugh. Yeah, I gotcha. So he also has a couple of interesting platforms that make people in the Conservatives really, really upset. So not only does he expand voting rights, he makes voting compulsory. He says that everybody that is registered to vote has to go vote. Also, he instills education as mandatory. You must ask you a question. Should I summon the opinion hat now or later? Joey, whenever you feel the need to summon the opinion hat, my friend, you just hit the button and you do that summoning. So, anyway, he has a lot of stuff going on, and this is really freaking out the Conservatives. He also has these all sound like good things. Well, I mean, kind of. He also has a very strong independent streak, and he thinks that Nicaragua should be sovereign. It should have control over its own borders. It doesn't need anybody poking around inside of it. And of course, this is kind of a veiled target at the United States, but this is also a target at the British. And you go, well, what the devil do the British have anything to do with this? And I would ask you then if you've ever heard of the Mosquito Coast. And some people in the room might go, yes, I live in the Mosquito Coast. It's called Gulfport, Mississippi. But not actually. This is a region inside of Honduras and Nicaragua. If I would click this. The U.S. was like, oh, no, he didn't. So the pink area here is the Mosquito Coast. There was a movie about the Mosquito Coast, and it starred Harrison Ford. So this is the Mosquito Coast, and this territory was recognized as a British protectorate. And that's a fancy way of saying the British didn't necessarily want to rule the area directly, but they also didn't want anybody else mucking around in it. And I do use the word muck literally because this is a very swampy coastal area. So the Mosquito Coast originally had basically been a big pirate haven, mostly the same way that the country of Belize became a British colony. There were British and Dutch pirates that would hang out in this area going way back into the colonial periods of time, but the British still had a lot of influence in that area, especially in some of the big Atlantic coastal cities. And Zelaya goes, no, we don't want you around. And Zelaya literally invades the Mosquito Coast and adds this to Nicaragua. That's going to set off some alarm bells. There are going to be a lot of people going, what's up with these metrics use the mosquitoes use the metric system. They know exactly how many milliliters of blood they're sucking out of you. So Zelaya is going to invade the Mosquito Coast and add it to Nicaragua. This sends up even more red flags. And one of the main reasons that Zelaya wants to include this Mosquito Coast is because at that time there were interests by a couple of different countries at building a canal across this region of the world. And of course, we know today that the Panama Canal is going to cross here, but due to there's a big lake right here called Lake Nicaragua. Because of this big lake and several of the river systems, there was actually a very viable pathway through southern Nicaragua that might connect the Atlantic and the Pacific. And there had already been some movement across Nicaragua where people would move most of the way through the country, unload stuff on the stagecoaches, and then move it the rest of the way over to the other side of the country and put it back on ships. And Zelaya goes, we want to be that place. We want to be the place that has the canal. But of course, America didn't like that because America was already making moves down in Panama, and they don't like the fact that Zelaya has an established trade network already, and now he controls both sides of his country, and he's very liberal and not interested in letting them in on the pie. This is pre-Panama Canal. Well, this is like intra-Panama Canal. The United States was already sort of mentally invested in building a canal in Panama and had already done a lot of work to support people in South America and Central America revolting against the Spanish and setting up Panama as an independent country. Oh no, he didn't. Exactly. Right. This is oh no, he didn't. So this guy is doing the things that a lot of people don't like. He's making Monroe Doctrine away. That's actually quite great. Right. You don't do anything that I don't want you to do. You do what I tell you to do. So here comes the United States. Give me just a second. I'm sorry. I need to send a message, and I know that this is very not pro streamer. All right, there we go. Sorry, that's all I needed to do. Okay, so the United States really doesn't like Zelaya, and here comes the United States is a phrase to repeat. Yes, unfortunately true. So the United States is going to start doing a lot of stuff that you could probably consider international espionage. They're going to start poking at the Nicaraguan government. They're going to start trying to find people inside of the conservative party that they might align with to support in the next elections. They really want Zelaya out. And they're going to have their opportunity after Zelaya catches a whole bunch of people that are performing some anti-government work. There had been some sabotaging done. There had been some blockading and mining of particular waterways inside of Nicaragua to sort of dissuade people from using this area. And Zelaya catches a lot of these people and charges them with treason and then has them put on trial and they get killed. Included in this are 2 Americans. And as you might expect, this is like, oh, no, you didn't. And at this point, the United States is going to decide that it's time to invade because now they're killing people. And the United States invades in 1909. And when they push Zelaya out of power, they make sure that they prop up the good old-fashioned conservatives. And this is the first right. So we went to the left, now we're going back to the right. And in 1909, they're also going to leave behind Marines in a city called Bluefields, which is a port city down in the southern part of Nicaragua, right around here. And it's not showing up. There we are. Bluefields. Boom. So we have United States Marines stationed inside of Nicaragua with the expressed purpose of keeping the peace, but what they're really doing, let's be honest, is making sure that the Conservative Party stays in power. Because, of course, the Conservatives, once they're brought back into power, are going to make some really great trade deals, the best trade deals ever, with the United States and give them all basically unlimited access to port cities. They're going to shut down the Nicaraguan canal plans just in the dust. Like, nope, we're not going to do that at all. And this, of course, is in response to the United States' prime choice of Panama. And they're going to oversee a new Nicaraguan constitution because, well, you know, Zelaya had put a lot of those constitutional amendments in the Nicaraguan constitution, and we really don't like those, and the only way to get rid of that is to just rewrite the whole constitution. So let's get our guys down in Nicaragua to rewrite a new constitution for the country and make sure that we get those good, strong pro-U.S. wordings in there the way that we like them. This is going to continue for another almost 20 years, where the Conservatives are once again going to dominate the majority of politics. They're going to have almost unlimited authority, and there's going to be some real anger at this. The people that had benefited from Zelaya's term as president, and again, he was elected multiple times, but he was elected openly and fairly. And the second time he was elected, he won with a majority, a good, healthy majority of the vote. Now I know why they don't like us. Asa, if I could tell you every country that doesn't like us because of junk that we did during the 18 and early 1900s and then later in the Cold War, it would be almost the same as looking at a map of places that don't like England because of colonialism. I love America. I think it's a great country. I would not want to have my citizenship taken away from me, but let's be honest, America has not always made the right decisions and stuff. Yes, but now I really, really know, you know. It gets worse. Just wait. We haven't got to Reagan yet. That's actual atrocious at that point. So in 1926, the Conservatives are again going to have an internal struggle. And this is between a group of conservatives that were a little bit more pro-America and a group of conservatives that were a little bit less pro-America. Some of these conservatives had figured out that America was actually reaping a lot of the economic benefits, and some of them sort of wanted to rework a little bit of the trade deals so that they, being the producers of money in Nicaragua, got to hold on to more of the money inside of Nicaragua. Stuff U.S. did in the Cold War, read Jakarta Method. Pretty much. Indonesia was a great example of that in the 50s, where America... But we could list a lot of these things in the 50s. We could talk about Syria and Guatemala. We could talk about Chile. We could talk about Iran. We could talk about a lot of these things. Hey, Monty Manone. Welcome. Hope you're having a great one. Feel free to ask questions. Maybe ask Venezuela about Merca. Ooh. Thing is, most Americans don't agree with our foreign policy. And I would agree with both that And what KP said, I don't think that a lot of them would agree with it, but a lot of them don't even know that they don't want to agree with it, if that makes any sense. So, and I don't want to sit here and bash America all night long, but we did some bad stuff and we need to own up to it. It's part of becoming better. You admit where you did stuff wrong so you don't do it again. It's healthy. The U.S. having a great set of founding principles doesn't mean that people ruining it have lived up to those. Exactly. I'm down with that. Point of method is that it came to South America, Brazil. Yeah, it came to basically anywhere that the United States thought might be leaning communist. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Let's talk about the Civil War in 26. So by the time we get to 1926, not 1,000, we have fast forwarded a whole 1,000 years. 1926, the conservatives are having a little bit of an internal spat. And one part of the Conservative Party tries to take over the other part of the Conservative Party. They both end up sort of giving each other a black eye, and the liberals are going to take this opportunity to try to lead an open revolt. And this is going to turn into a short-lived civil war that goes from 26 to 27. But what it's going to lead into is a much longer period of time, well, not much longer, another 6 years worth, from 27 to 33, where there are going to be sustained guerrilla tactics and attacks held against both conservative leadership positions and the United States Marines inside of Nicaragua. And those are going to be led by a guy who's going to be pretty important for both what he does and his name. This guy. This is Augusto Cesar Sandino. Of course, you know that I have to stop talking so that I can type because I can't do it the same thing. So Augusto Cesar Sandino, he is going to be the leader of a group of individuals that are going to carry a guerrilla war on against both, again, the conservative position and the United States position. And in 33, his actions are going to be responsible for actually pushing out the American Marines. Yeah, he wins that hat election. Exactly. That is a powerful hat. I like this hat. And what's crazy about it, and this isn't actually crazy, but what's interesting is you rarely see a picture of him without the hat. The hat is sort of part of his persona, and I think it's great. I'm a fan of hats in general. Pardon me. So Sandino is going to force out the American Marines, but America's not ready to just give up its investment inside of Nicaragua. Oh no. So they might be pulling out the Marines, but in the process of pulling out the Marines, what they're actually doing is looking for somebody to be their guy. Would you go outside without that hat? Maybe not in the jungles of Nicaragua along the border with Honduras, because it's very sunny there. And I would probably turn into a crispy nugget of dead skin if I went outside without the hat. Okay, so the United States needs a new person to fight against Sandino, but also to protect their interests inside of Nicaragua. And they choose a guy named Anastasio Somoza Garcia. Anastasio Somoza Garcia. And he looks like every picture that you might think of a dictator in the... so let me say this, and then I'll show you his picture. Again, this is Sandino. If you think of Central American dictator and get that image in your head, all right, has everybody had a moment to get the image of Central American dictator in your head? Okay, now let me show you Somoza Garcia. How close is that to what you were thinking? It does make me wonder if there's something under the hat. Your desiccated mummified corpse would technically be tanned? Sure, technically, actually. I'm so proud of myself when I burned away my head so badly that my whole... Oh, calm heart. That sounds horrible, and I can sort of commiserate. So that's pretty close to your idea. That's pretty spot on. You were expecting the villain from Zorro. That's great. Okay, so again, this is Anastasio Somoza Garcia, and he's going to be the United States' guy. And of course, he is very conservative. He's going to be the guy that they pick. They prop him up. They make sure that he wins the election. And he is sort of the hand-picked heir, generalissimo. Exactly. And it's actually really important that you mention generalissimo, because one of the things that the United States did as they're pulling out the Marines is that they organize a group inside of Nicaragua called the National Guard. And this is a federal army that is going to be headed by a general. And that general is basically going to be directly sort of a puppet of the United States. And Anastasia Somoza Garcia was the guy that they chose to be the first, well, not the first, but one of the biggest and earliest leaders of this National Guard. So he has control of the National Guard. Then he gets elected president, and he merges those positions together. So he has complete control over the executive branch, and he has complete control over the military. And you already know where this is going, right? You already know how this is going to end up. And he is going to, once he takes over in 1936, he is going to slowly but surely completely rewrite the legal code of Nicaragua that is eventually going to allow him to stay in power for as long as he wants to. He doesn't need to get reelected anymore. He doesn't have to turn over power from the military. He's going to be the guy that runs the country. And that's going to be a very powerful position, as everyone knows it's going to be. So how do you get rid of a guy that controls basically the entire country? Well, you have a hard time doing that. A lot of these moves become very unpopular, not just with the liberal element of people inside of Nicaragua, but also with that other faction of conservatives that don't really like the fact that these Nicaraguan conservative dictators are cozying up so much with the United States. You were expecting Woody Allen in a fake beard and military fatigues. I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess, yeah. Hi, Motivic. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Really? A unilateral dictatorship is unpopular? Go figure. Go figure. Oh, we're being visited by a puppy who has a toy. Hello, puppy. You all want to see the puppy? Oh, look, it's the Kaylee. Hello, puppy. Hello. Where are you going? You're going to show off? You've got to look at... Can I have your toy? No. Well, what do you want me to do with it? What do you want me to do? We'll bring it here. Bring it... What are you doing? Can I have the toy? No. Can I have it? Can I have it? She'll do this thing where she'll try to... Where she'll try to, like, fake me out. Can I have it? No. I'm being invaded by the puppy. I must now rewrite my constitution. Yes, to include unlimited playtime. Oh, man. I don't know why she's begging for play. We went outside and threw the tennis balls around this afternoon. She's trying to get me... Yeah, it's exactly what she wants. She wants me to play with her. She'll go up front and play with Brittany. Hey, Half Design. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Okay, so Somoza becomes a dictator. he has virtually unlimited power, and he starts making people angry because not just the liberals, but also some people in his own conservative party just don't like this guy. And he's ruling during World War II, and this is going to be a grand time for him because World War II gives him the opportunity to do a lot of stuff. First off, he declares war against Germany, but they don't actually send any troops. The reason he declares war against Germany is because there were German companies and individuals who held a lot of what we would probably call luxury real estate inside Nicaragua. And by declaring war on Germany, he says, oh, all of these people are undercover spies, so I'm just going to confiscate all of their possessions and their land. And this is, of course, he wants the fancy villas up in the mountains for himself. And of course he does, because he's one of those guys, right? He's going to be very big on throwing people in jail if they question him. He really likes this confiscation of property thing, and that's going to sort of end up being how patriotic, right? You're trying to take down Nicaragua, so I'm going to take your house. But it happens, right? So Somoza Garcia is going to end up assassinated, and he gets killed in 1956. And in what might be one of the more ironic assassinations in history, he is killed by a liberal inside León, which is the most liberal city of Nicaragua. And the guy that shoots him is a poet. He gets assassinated by a liberal poet in what might be the liberal capital of Nicaragua. So, su casa es mi casa. Oh, Fern. Accurate. Didn't Nazis confiscate property on those exact same grounds? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So, Somoza Garcia gets assassinated in 1956 by a liberal poet in León. Poetic injustice. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. It was the poet in León with a gun. It was. New version of Clue. International Dictator Clue. Oh man, that's kind of horrible. I don't necessarily want to make a game out of people's death, but with a hand grenade in Sarajevo by the Serbian nationalist. Anyway, we could play that game. There would be enough of them. Anyway, that's what Clue is, a game of murder. Yeah, it is a game about murder, that's for sure. Okay, so Somoza Garcia dies. His eldest son, Luis Somoza de Valle, is going to take over. Do you want a general European war? Because that's how you get a general European war. Marketed to families. Clue, the family game of murder. Gather round, children, while we discuss how to kill people and where to stash the bodies for optimal hiding capacity. Travel through the secret trap door in the back of the conservatory to stab that dude in the billiard room. Somehow I don't think that Milton Bradley and or Parker Brothers or whoever puts the Clue out would have a good time marketing that game that way. Okay, so hey Bloss87, and welcome. Bloss87 was hanging out in Cryomira's channel earlier and gave me the follow, so welcome and thanks for showing up. Again, my name is Shane. We talk about history. We're tonight talking about Nicaragua, which you can see here on the map. Map. That guy, yeah. And we're currently talking about this guy, Luis Somoza de Valle. And I can show you what he looks like. I have a picture of this guy. Not that guy. That's his dad. Now, ask yourself what you think the son of a military dictator in Central America looks like that suddenly gets thrust into the spotlight. And get that image in your mind. Are you ready? This is Luis Somoza Debayle, who is the sort of second president in the Somoza dynasty, if you will. He takes over. He takes over in 1956 when his father gets assassinated. And this guy is, as you might expect, going to continue right along in his father's footsteps. The guy is all about cozying up to the United States, promoting super levels of corruption. One of the things that Somoza Debayle was especially sort of a thing about was kind of doing this thing where he would make an announcement, but what he would sort of really want to do is like, I'm going to kind of float this idea, guys. I've got an idea about what might happen. What would you think if I did this? And then he would wait for the United States to go, the United States thinks that looks good. And Somoza Debayle would be like, yeah, there we go. I like it too. That's what I thought. A kid who lived off dad too long. He looks like the non-military version of his dad. Well, you might think that's kind of an ironic turn of phrase, but he actually decides that he doesn't necessarily want to be in charge of the National Guard. So he gives control of the National Guard to his younger brother, Anastasio Somoza Debayle, and he just kind of hangs on as president. Like a Latin Kim Jong-un. I had not thought of that, but it's somewhat applicable. Anyway, so here's the thing about Somoza Debayle. There had been some laws that had effectively been forced through in his first term that would create some trouble with him immediately running for election. So the law said basically that you had to take some time off. You could not run consecutive presidential terms. So he has this switcheroo thing that he decides to do where he's going to not be president for a couple of years, but he's going to put this sort of group of counselors together that are going to kind of run the country, but he's really pulling all of the strings. And then when that couple of years goes through, he goes, well, you know, there wasn't a president for a while, so now I'm going to run for president again. And of course he gets elected because he made it happen. This stuff is really going to get under the skin of the liberals inside of Nicaragua. They had already lived through decades of his father's rule. Now it looks like Luis Somoza Debayle is going to be another decade. He was a young guy. At that point, he was in his early 40s. This guy could theoretically be, you know, in charge of the country for the next 40-something years. And under his rule, there's going to be the origin of a group called the Sandinistas. Sandinistas. And they pick up this name Sandinista, recalling Sandino, Augusto Cesar Sandino, the guy that had led that sort of liberal pushback that had pushed out the United States from from Nicaragua, and they're going to take his name as a badge of honor. And this is mostly going to be student groups usually in universities, especially around Leon and in the capital city. If we're not going to have elephants, I guess sycophants have to do. What year was it when this was taking place? This is so Luis Somoza Debayle rules or is in power from 1956 to 1967. And the Sandinistas are going to start showing up in 1961 or so, but they're not going to be called Sandinistas originally. They're going to pick up the name Sandinista in 1963 after they kind of have a convention. Pink Eye Poxy with the big raid. And of course, once again, my flippin' Streamlabs is not going off. Bum ba-dum, bum ba-dum, bum, bum ba-dum, bum bum. Thank you all for the raid. Blooming Zonda, thank you for the follow. the opinion hat. It looks like this. And I'm a very opinionated guy. Pinky, thank you for the raid. Thank you. Oh, hi, oh, hi. I love that, by the way. So I don't know why my raid alert isn't going off, but my follow alert is going off. That's wonky, and I don't like it. Pinky, how was the rest of your stream? Hey, Trono Wolf, what's going on? You require a summary of the last century. Okay, very briefly, for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Shane McInnes. I'm a history instructor at college for a living, but I really like history, and I don't think it has to be boring, so I come on stream every couple of days, and I goof off and make bad dad jokes and have fun and goof off with my friends. And tonight we are in a viewer request episode. Tonight's topic is the Contras, which were a group of paramilitary conservatives that were fighting back against the liberal government of Nicaragua. And we are in the process of working our way towards that because nothing comes out of, a vacuum. So we are working our way towards that. We're just about there. We are currently talking about the rule of a guy named Luis Somoza de Valle. I can show you his photo if you want to take a picture of this guy. Look at that guy. Yeah, that looks like a Central American dictator if I've ever seen one, right? Check out that sash, man. That sash has got some nice needlework on it. Anyway, so that guy's currently ruling. Pinky, how did the rest of the stream go? For those of you that... Bum-ba-dum. Shout out Pink Hypoxy. For those of you that do not know, you need to go follow Pink Hypoxy. She is a great streamer, does some really cool oil paintings and or graphite drawings, depending on what day of the week it is. Has been painting portraits, did a gizmo, well, several gizmos actually. Got some neat puppers that hang out in the studio with her. Good chat, nice people, wholesome atmosphere. I like them a lot, and you should go give her a follow. We talked about food, even though she asked us not to. Oh, Moose, that's... Yeah. It's good and fun. That's good to hear. I'm glad you're doing well, and thank you for the raid. It is much appreciated. And welcome to all of you that came in with Pinky. Hope you're all having a good day as well. Random history fact, Cold War spies... Cold War spies were everywhere. They did lots of things. They tried to kill people, and a lot of the stuff that you see in James Bond wasn't necessarily that far-fetched. Brittany, do you have a specific Cold War spy fact or just a random one? Because there are lots of them. One of the... I guess I can give you a random one, and then if you have a specific, I can come back with a specific. But... Spies are actually a lot older than Cold War stuff. They go all the way back to, even the ancient world. But if you're talking about specifically random stuff that I pick, well, let's see. Must let the dogs out soon. Okay, be back. Tell the dogs I said hey. I don't think they know who I am, but they might know. Who knows? They may have read my text and my bad jokes as I annoy people in your chat. Okay, so Cold War spies. Okay, how about this? There is a Cold War spy museum. Well, it's technically just this espionage museum inside the sort of larger downtown Washington, D.C. area. Pretty cool place. In there, you can go see a sort of menagerie of things that have been associated with spy networks. And one of the cool things that they have is, well, they used to have when I was there, they have an Enigma machine. The Enigma machine was the German code developing construct that the Germans used to encode all of their messages. And it was effectively impossible to break. But it was finally broken by a guy named Alan Turing. There is an amazing movie starring Bandersnatch Cumberbund about Alan Turing. It's called The Imitation Game. And there was recently an Enigma machine recovered in an underwater archaeological dig. So, Enigma machine, one of the cooler things used in Spy World. That's I said Bandersnatch Cumberbund, but I make fun of the guy's name. I probably shouldn't. He's a really good actor. Benedict Cumberbatch is his name. But if you haven't seen an Imitation Game, you should go check it out. It's a really good movie. Okay, so back to the growth thing here. But for those of you that might be hanging out and new in the channel, feel free to ask questions about whatever. Feel free to throw out any random factoid or bit of data or bad joke or pun on someone's name. Who cares? If it's all in good fun, we'll all have fun, right? So feel free, kick your feet up, be welcome. Let's talk about some more stuff in Nicaragua. Okay, so we have Luis Somoza Devallier. He is taking over where his dad left off. Bankenheim. Bum, bum. Thanks for the follow. So Sandinistas are going to show up under the rule of Luis Somoza Devallier because they're worried that these people, this family, are maybe going to run Nicaragua forever. And they're really worried about this. And initially, these Sandinistas are not going to be an active military or paramilitary force. They're usually just going to do stuff like protest, minor mischief, sit-in kind of things like that. But that's going to change after some events. So in 67, Luis Somoza Devallier is going to have a massive heart attack at the age of 44. And his brother is going to take over. Anastasio Somoza Devallier. And he... you saw that coming? I don't know why you saw that coming. This is what he looks like. This is Anastasio Somoza Devallier. He's going to take over as president where his brother left off. And then things get a little bit weird. And this is going to get weird for a reason that you might not pick. Unless you're playing 2020 bingo, I don't think anybody's going to pick random earthquake that wipes out 80% of the capital as the event that's going to take place next. He looks like he should be anchoring the news. Welcome to Nicaragua tonight. I'm Anastasio Somoza Devallier. That was my best Walter Cronkite. I don't know if it came through or not. He looks like he's going to take over the Chrysler Building, not a country. Oh, but we're so close to Christmas. You could have said he's going to take over Nakatomi Plaza. 2020 is not over yet. Let's not hope for massive earthquakes that wreck 80% of the buildings in the capital. Let's just ask 2020 to leave us alone, at least for the next few weeks. Can we not have a couple of weeks of peace? And just to be completely not a poopy pants, but kind of a poopy pants, 2021 is not going to look any different when we get there. For the next 6 to 7 months, it's going to look a lot like this, because COVID ain't going nowhere till everybody gets the stuff over. Whim Wizard, man, I wish I could share that optimism. There are signs of glimmering hope, and we just have to hold on to those and clutch those with our... January 20th looks bright. Just hold on to those bright shining moments with our knuckles whitened. There will be better days. We'll just leave it at that. So in 1972, there is a massive earthquake in Managua, the capital city, and it really is a big flippin' earthquake. We do have work to do. Just because political stuff changes doesn't mean everything's going to change. So here's Managua, capital city, 1972, big old earthquake. Wrecks 80% of the buildings. And this is going to be sort of a international thing. People are going to be looking at Nicaragua already. And the international aid is just going to get turned on, and that big old faucet is just going to come right on down. And guess who's going to be sitting at the end of that faucet with a big old cup? Like, yep, I'll take some of that aid, please. Yeah, this guy. Yeah, that guy. We don't actually know how much he embezzled, but some of the estimates stretch up to $400 million. And you go, oh, $400 million. Yeah, that's not a big of a deal. Remember that this is 1972. When my dad was in high school in 1972, he could go to the movies for a quarter. $400 million was a lot of money in 1972. I know that there's a website that does like adjusting for inflation. I don't know how much $400 million in 1972 dollars is worth. So him personally, yes, he is taking this money that is being given to his country to rebuild. Certainly that aid will go to help those that need it. Yeah. I want you to convince me that $400 million isn't a lot today. I'm not saying that it isn't a lot even today. But when you see the amount of spending packages and money that gets thrown around in countries like the United States, $400 million is like, okay, we just spent like $1 trillion bailing out the first round of COVID relief. That's the big money. It's worth approximately 2 Bitcoin today. Oh, 2.49 billion dollars. Good gracious. Yeah, that's a lot of flipping money, right? I don't know where you get that much money. So the capital was destroyed, and then the capital was stolen. Blankenheim. I will put my hat on so that I can take my hat off to you. Well done. Well done. I mean, it's just paper and ink, right? Yeah, exactly. From embezzlement. Indeed. That's some embezzling. This is going to inflame the Sandinistas. They're not going to take this. They're going to start actively committing, at this point, what you would call terrorist activity against his dictatorship. And Somoza is going to respond exactly how you would expect a Central American dictator to respond, which is he cracks down really hard. He starts using the military as police. He has a lot of no trial murders. He shuts down all of the government. He shuts down all of the media except for the ones run by the government. And he throws all of the people that are in politics that disagree with him into jail. Well, that's what you do. Your dictator is going to dictate, right? So they were activists that turned into the people soldiers. Yes. He sends them a fruit basket. Dear sir, we're quite displeased with your recent embezzling of funds. Please return those to the people and have some fruit. What you are presenting me an award for is exactly why COVID isn't the first year my parents haven't invited me to Christmas. Oh! Bankenheim, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. Hopefully there are better days in the future. You gotta laugh at the puns, though, right? You got to. You gotta laugh at the puns. That's what they're there for. They're there for a laugh. Hemlock beer in the fruit basket. Ooh! Probably not, I guess they did try to kill him, but not with hemlock beer. Okay, so the Sandinista activity that's being carried out against Anastasio Somoza Devallier is going to get pretty nasty. And by the time that we get to 1978, this is going to be open rebellion. The Sandinistas are going to have a lot of support, not just from people in the Liberal Party, but definitely from the people in the Liberal Party. They're also going to have a lot of support from people that just don't like Somoza Deballe. We don't judge puns here. All puns are welcome. That is accurate. This is a pun-free zone. You are free to make whatever puns you desire. Everyone is welcome. And inside of this movement, there's going to be a young man that starts becoming a pretty big and clear leader. And this guy's name is Daniel Ortega. I'm going to run out of room here. Let me show you Daniel Ortega. That's the break screen. That's not Daniel Ortega. And that's not Daniel Ortega either. That's Anastasio Somoza Deballe. This guy is Daniel Ortega. Oh, yeah, not a pun-free zone. My bad. Free pun zone. Yeah, I said that badly. Apologies. So this is Daniel Ortega. This is exactly what you would think that a charismatic revolutionary that started off as a college activist looks like, right? That man is a handsome brick street. He looks like a computer programmer. Well, he looks like a particular individual, and I don't want to say it. No, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, but those are definitely some 80s glasses. This guy's listening to Bob Marley. I think he's trying to sell me a magazine. Bringing the mustache back. Right. What is it with the liberal leaders and the mustaches? Anyway, so Daniel Ortega is going to be one of the Sandinista leaders, and this guy is going to be really popular. It creeps in late again. Dad dang it, hunk. No, man, for real. You come in whenever you want to. You don't have to apologize. Nobody gets gold stars for attendance. Everybody's free to come in and leave on their own volition. Show up whenever you want to. Just have some fun. David Peterson. Who likes sandwiches? They're good, right? Well, David, now that you popped back up again, anything there? I'll just leave it at that. That was meant to sync up with that dude. Okay. Anyway, Daniel Ortega is going to be he's going to be the guy that is going to sort of form the Sandinistas into an actual force that has some power behind them. Actually, I wasn't thinking you. I was actually thinking old pictures that I've caught occasionally of your dad. But I don't know if that's completely accurate because I think I've only seen maybe one or two. Anyway, you'll go with anyone who offers me a tuna fish sandwich that has Pringles in it. So he was leader of the rebels. Well, I mean, hold on. Things happen. He looks like a young Edward James Olmos. I'll give you that. Except Edward James Olmos looks like a young version of this guy because this guy was alive. The timeline is here. And anyway. Okay, so you two in the back talking about pencils, you all straighten up. I can see what you're doing back there. You should have come to class prepared. He could be a rebel starfighter in Star Wars. Okay. The Sandinistas are going to give the Somoza dynasty a lot of trouble. And he's going to cause a lot of issues within the sort of internal structure of the control party or he's going to find the weaknesses inside of the Conservative Party and especially inside of the National Guard. That had the National Guard by this point had become sort of more of an intimidation group instead of an actual organized military unit. And Ortega is going to recognize this stuff, and he's going to start like poking at people and causing them to basically look silly. And it's at this time that the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, is going to remove approval of the Somoza leadership. This is in 1979. So Jimmy Carter says, I don't think that the United States needs to be involved with this Somoza guy anymore, and removes official United States support. And at that point, things get real interesting, because without the United States to back up his leadership, who's gonna be in charge? And the United States starts looking for other people to be their puppets, and they're mostly looking within the leadership of the National Guard, but they can't really find anybody. And Somoza has to resign because he's got people within his own party that are sort of calling for his blood. He's got the Sandinista rebellion being led by Daniel Ortega, and it's time for another election. And in 1979, there is such an election, and Daniel Ortega gets elected president. And he's going to set up, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. He's going to first set up a junta, which is, of course, just a committee. And Ortega is going to be at the head of this junta, and he's going to give positions in this group to the opposition party. Now, of course, he organizes it so that they have a voting role, but he's kind of being a little bit disingenuous about this because it only takes 3 votes to pass something, and people aligned with him control 3 votes. Did Teddy Roosevelt affect his region of Central America? Yes. Life of Mamba, absolutely. We covered that a little bit at the beginning, mostly under Jose Santos Zelaya, who was trying to build a canal across Nicaragua, and the United States shut that down real prompt because they were already sort of in this mindset that Panama was the place to build a canal. But that would have been under Roosevelt. First Roosevelt, not second Roosevelt. So, anyway, Ortega is going to take over, and this guy's going to do a lot of stuff that is really great for the people of Nicaragua. First off, he starts divesting land. Under the Somoza sort of regime, the government of Nicaragua had acquired just tons and tons of land from all of this confiscation. And Ortega's like, no, we got to give that back to the people. So he divests a lot of land back out to the people, including some really good farmland. He decides that one of the big things that he needed to do to fix Nicaragua was to push literacy. Even in 1979, literacy rates in Nicaragua were horrible. Only somewhere around 50% of people could read and write in the country. And when he took over, he really pushed this literacy thing. He hired a whole bunch of people inside of Nicaragua and trained them to be teachers of reading and writing and sent them out into the country. And in the span of just a few years, they had cut the illiteracy rate in more than half. Illiteracy dropped like by 30-something% inside Nicaragua. And this was recognized internationally. He won a whole bunch of, well, not he, but his government won some pretty big international prizes for the work that they did working towards eliminating literacy inside Nicaragua. He also does a lot towards workers' rights. He allows for unions to reform inside of Nicaragua. He does a lot of overhauling of the structure that the Somozas had set up that had effectively left them in power forever. He really strengthens the electoral system and sets it up so that there are kind of multiple levels of oversight in the elections. And he does a lot of good work inside of Nicaragua. I don't know, Life of Mama, don't apologize, man. Don't apologize at all. Good for him. So he really was for the people. Yeah. Every time you say Somoza, you hear samosa. I like Girl Scout cookies too. And samosas are nice. There's also the Indian food samosa. I like samosa chat, which is quite tasty. I quite like that as well. If I'm making you hungry, I apologize. Now I want cookies. But such is life. Anyway, so is that... Oh, you would like a mimosa? I don't know if I can endorse those or not. Those get you a little bit... Well, I mean, I guess if you eat too many cookies, you end up in the same state, more or less. But anyway. I'm drinking tea, which was thermonuclear hot when I started, and now it's a bit cold. But such is life. Sumosa mimosa. I dig it. Anyway, while Ortega is doing all of this stuff, people within the United States and people that were conservatives with inside Nicaragua are immediately waving the big red flag of the Cold War. And everybody knows what that big red flag is. That big red flag is Daniel Ortega's a Marxist. And let's be fair. He hung out a lot with the leaders of Cuba. And he had some contact with the Russians directly. And he was a guy that supported a lot of socialist policy. But was he the imminent threat of Red Nicaragua taking over Central America? No, not at all. You got a rum and coke, because man, you can have whatever you want to, as long as we're all cool and we're all being cool. You do you, my friend. You enjoy your free time. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt anybody else. You're all good. Socialism, right? He's a socialist. As if we haven't heard that for way too long in the last media cycle. Anyway, and with this imminent fear of communist threat, you have the rise of, wait for it, anybody? That's right, the Contras. Was there any overlap between Ortega and Che? No. That's going to be over before Ortega starts up. The whole Cuban revolution thing is about 20 years before this. I mean, was Ortega alive? Sure, but was Ortega in power at the same time?
We shall have camels, horses, an armed escort,
and
provisions,
tanks.
desert vehicles, and tanks.
You're welcome. Thanks, Hunk. Much appreciated for the bits. I need to get a better emote or a little flasher thingy mabobber for that. And hey, Visual Nomad, how's it going? Welcome. So I love that scene. Yeah, I lean pretty hard on the old history movies. Mayor Barzini, hello, and Pikachu, hello. No, caps are perfectly fine. You can love that scene hard. I love that scene. Caps are welcome here as long as you're being nice about it. I'm pretty laid back if you can't tell. Anyway, so the Contras. Now, who are the Contras? We're supposed to be talking about the Contras already. And by the way, at this point, we are at the second left. So we've gone left with Zelaya, then we've gone back right with the Somozas. Now we're left again with Ortega. And I guess I'm spoiling the story, and you know what happens at the end because, well, I'm sorry. So who are the Contras? Well, okay, first off...
I'm Spartacus!
I am Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
No, I am Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. And now you're Spartacus. And now Cassidy is Spartacus. Cassidy, are you hiding in the chat? If you're lurking in the chat, I don't want to call you out and make you talk. But if you're in the chat, I need to shout you out. Well, I'll just do it this way and make it work anyway. Boom! For those of you that don't know, Cassidy Austin Art, who just received a gift sub from Incredible Hunk. Thank you, Hunk. Much appreciated. Cassidy's working. You should go follow Cassidy. She streams Twitch. She does oil painting. So all of you that might still be here from Pink Eye stream, Go give Cassidy a follow. She spent some time over in Italy learning how to do good old-fashioned classical artwork stuff. Does really great paintings. Cool person. You'll appreciate her channel. Go give her the old follow, Rooney. I am Matt. I am Matt. I am Carapace. I am a hard outer coating. Anyway, who are these Contras? We're supposed to be talking about them all night tonight, and I've just now gotten to them an hour into the stream. Oh, an hour and a half into the stream. Oh, wow. So, we've got to talk about these guys a little bit, right? So, first off, the Contras is plural, right? Contras with an S means there's more of them. Contra is short for Contrarrevolución, against the revolution. These are people that are standing against the Sandinistas. Quit slacking, Shane. We need the edumacation. I love this little pointy guy. Little pointy guy. No, you're not a distraction. I would be chasing rabbits even if you weren't in the room. It's kind of what I do. My brain is like a giant blender of history, and it just kind of vomits out stuff randomly. More random banters. I don't know about this movie. The main character doesn't show up until the movie is half over. So there are two main groups that are both counter-revolutionaries, and they are referred to in general as the Contras. And the first one is the Nicaraguan Democratic Force. And I should probably shrink that so that these can fit on lines. Go down in size, I say. I made it shrink. I have magic powers. And the other one is the Democratic Revolutionary Alliance. And I'm going to have to make that go smaller. And smaller. I'm made of tinier words. No? Nope. Still no? Ah, there we are. And I can't spell. Watch this kick it. Ah, okay, there we go. Okay, so there are two groups that are the sort of leaders of the Contras. Not now at all. There is the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, and these guys are old conservatives that were anti-Somoza. So you remember me saying that back during the Somoza dynasty, there were conservatives that didn't like the Somozas hoarding all the power and hoarding all the money. And included inside of the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, there are a lot of old National Guard members. And this is the group, the National Democratic Force, that is going to get that good old sweet U.S. money. The CIA is going to reach out to them in 1981 and turn on that big old freedom faucet and say, you guys get all the money. Now, you might go, well, then who are these other Contras? The Democratic Revolutionary Alliance. Who are they? Well, it turns out that when Ortega took over, he didn't actually do everything that he had promised to do, and there were Sandinistas that didn't like Ortega. So the Democratic Revolutionary Alliance are Sandinistas that don't like the guy that's in charge. So not everybody can be 100% loved. You can't make all the people happy all the time. But the Nicaraguan Democratic Force is going to be the main group. They're going to be the ones that the United States pick up, and they're going to be the guy or the people that are going to get the blessing of that guy that does lots of things in foreign policy. Not this guy. This guy! That's Ronald Reagan. Everybody knows old Ronald Reagan. President in 1981. This guy is all about the Contras. And here's the thing. He doesn't like Ortega. Ortega is... no, not John Wayne. AKA, they're going to get the rocket launchers. Yes, they do get the rocket launchers. It's a great heads up that you mentioned the rocket launchers. So Ortega, by this point, had recognized that the United States did not like him and sort of wanted him dead. And it might not be too surprising that because the United States didn't like him and wanted him dead, he kind of liked talking to other people like Fidel Castro in Cuba or, Russia. And Ortega finds out that the United States is smuggling guns and weapons and money into the Contra, and he says, "Hey, Russia, can I get some help?" And guess what? Russia's like, "Sure, comrade, we will give you helicopters," which is the Russian example of how to get rid of anybody. We will give you helicopters. Because that's pretty much Afghanistan and most of Central Asia and pretty much everywhere that Russia was they're all about the helicopters, the Russians. So this is going to turn, as you might expect, violent. And things are going to get pretty bad pretty quick. Fidel Castro, our current leader's father. Oh. Bloss, I was under the impression that was just an urban legend that had been disproven. Is there more to that than I actually know? No way. Look at the pictures. Only helicopters? Why no elephants? Well, by this point, elephants had been placed on what's called the endangered species list, and we're not really very big in warfare anymore. Thing about an elephant is, it doesn't really matter if you have an elephant. If I have a rocket-mounted propelled grenade, I can blow up your elephant from a distance. So, yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. These Contras are mostly going to hide out here along the border in Honduras and some across this bay right here inside El Salvador. And they're going to begin striking in guerrilla forces down inside Nicaragua and especially in the big cities. So just to be clear, the whole reason the U.S. wants to assassinate Ortega is because he hangs out with Marxists. Also, because he's very liberal. And because he's very liberal, he looks like he might be potential communist material. And we're still in the Cold War at this point. This is still, Berlin Wall up, Russia expanding military, lots of big missiles and problems and stuff. So we're still operating under the Truman Doctrine, which of course says if one country falls to communism, every country is going to fall to communism, and we can't let anything happen. So yeah, the United States was pretty much doing whatever it could to make sure that they had control over who ran these countries. So let's encourage him to really hang out with them. That's the sort of kicker. Like, you label somebody a potential communist threat and then start hiring people inside of their country to basically push these guys out of power and whack them. They're not going to like you very much. Elephants with rocket launchers. Elephant-mounted rocket launchers. Because people don't think that way about liberals in the 21st century. Whoo, shots fired. Nope, not at all. Fidel and Justin's father were friends. The families hung out a lot. He looks nothing like his father and a lot like Fidel. His mom cheated, or it was planned. Okay. Well, I'll have to look more into that. Maybe Blast, I don't know what's up with the thing there, but if you want to, you can throw that into the Discord. If you want to join the Discord, you can go join the Discord. We talk about history. We talk about life and other things too, but I mean, we share memes, we goof off, I make bad jokes online. But you can go share that there, Bloss, if you want to. Or Blaze? Bloss? How should I address you? I did not ask that question. I always try to. Anyway, so, am I sowing Discord again? I'm pushing Discord. Much like the Americans pushing the Contras into war, I am encouraging Discord. Bloss. There we go. I was saying it right. LOL, BL. Okay, so what's going to happen? Well, by 1982, these Contras were causing trouble. And Ortega is going to resort to, well, let's just be honest, dictatorial operation. He's going to shut down habeas corpus. He's going to throw people into prison without trials. He's going to pull back a lot of freedoms of the press and freedoms of speech. He's going to shut down a lot of media outlets, and he's going to set up military tribunals that are catching people and then basically trying them as war criminals inside of the country. And this sounds exactly like the stuff that the guy last before him was doing, Anastasio Somoza Devallier, because it is the same thing. I mean, let's call what it is. And this is where the United States is really going to start pushing, because once Ortega starts acting like a dictator, it's easy to paint him as a dictator. And at that point, let's be honest, he was a dictator. And the thing about Ortega, though, is that he had a massive amount of support. In fact, there is an election in 1984 where he wins with 67% of the vote. And you might go, oh, he rigged that. Well, here's the thing. Ortega had already put into place a lot of election reform. And in the election, he invited international election overseers. He invited countries from all over the world, come watch our election, see how we do it. There were people from Europe, there were people from the United States. The election, according to everybody that mentioned it, except for those that were upset that they lost, they said that the election was fair. And Ortega won with 67% of the vote, because the programs that he was pushing were helping the poorest of the people inside of Nicaragua. And they still loved these people. And the United States at that point is going to have to decide, are we going to topple an elected leader with 67% of popular votes, or are we going to try to back down? And we all know how this is going to work. Ronald Reagan doesn't back down. Instead, he doubles down. And this is going to be a pretty horrible period of time for United States foreign policy. They send in more money to the Contras. They also start encouraging the Contras to target civilians. And we know this because there was a lot of testimony about this. People have gone on the record about this. I'm not just making this stuff up. They encouraged the Contras to create as much strife inside of Nicaragua as possible, because that would reflect negatively on Ortega's leadership. They also literally wrote manuals that they smuggled into the Contra camps, and these manuals taught people all sorts of psyop stuff. Like, here's what you do when somebody says you're killing civilians. Here's how you justify it to them. And here's how you basically gaslight them into believing that Daniel Ortega is a bad guy. And this is, I mean, it's pretty clearly propaganda stuff, and it's pretty nasty. And it is bad. And this is going to be an international issue, because people around the world are going to start seeing this stuff happen. And everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows that it's the United States funding the Contras that's causing the Contras to do all of this damage inside Nicaragua, because they're going to kill somewhere close to 30,000 people in the span of just these few years. If you fight a bad guy by being a bad guy, it really hurts your effort. Right. As far as I understand, there were fair arguments that Reagan didn't know the details about how this war was carried out, but he was still the one who made the call for the operation. That is fair. And I'm actually getting to that particular point, Mac. I appreciate you keeping me honest here. So, the international outcry against the Contras was very loud, and people started really bringing a lot of scrutiny against this. And so the United States is actually going to pass a law in 1985 that includes something called the Boland Amendment. And the Boland Amendment says that money cannot go to the Contra to kill people. And there was a little bit of time where the Reagan administration tried to figure out how to not label something as assassination so that they could just label it as attacking somebody, so that they could kind of loophole around this. And this is when the really famous Iran-Contra issue shows up. Iran-Contra, this scandal breaks in 1985. The Boland Amendment passes in 84, and at that point, the government is not supposed to send money to the Contras anymore. Y'all never thought the climax of the story would come with a finance portion, did you? Let's talk about money. So the Boland Amendment passes. The United States officially shuts off the valve, but secretly in the background, the money keeps flowing. And Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua knows this. And Nicaragua actually brings the United States to court in the International Court of Justice. And this starts in 1985, and it takes a couple of years to play out. But the International Court of Justice sides with Nicaragua and says that, yes, the United States owes damages to Nicaragua for things like killing people, for things like illegally mining. When I mean mine here, I don't mean like digging out of the ground. I mean like placing mines inside of territorial waters of Nicaragua to keep people from being able to move freely in Nicaraguan waters, and funding violence. But here's the catch. The catch is that the lawsuit that Nicaragua brought against the United States argued that the government of the United States willingly committed these atrocities because they told the Contra to do it. And here's the decision. And this gets back a little bit to what Mac was mentioning. The court said that the United States had to have been able to show that they had complete control over the Contra to be basically held in... I'm losing my words here. For them to be charged with this crime, they had to have been able to directly control the Contra. And because of some gaps in understanding and how things flowed through the administration of Reagan, the government of the United States was not completely held liable for all of these crimes, but they were held liable for a lot of them. And this went to the UN because once they had a decision from the International Court of Justice, Nicaragua took this to the UN. What do you think the United States did in the UN? Well, of course, they shot down the thing and they vetoed it. So there was not any relief given to Nicaragua, even though the United States was held at fault. International Court of Justice, this is ICJ. The Hague. No problem. So while this court scandal thing is going on and the government of the United States is being held liable for some of the damage inside of Nicaragua, the government of the United States is also still secretly funding money to the Contras. And how are they doing that? Well, they're doing it in a sneaky way. There was, inside of Iran, a group of people that were supporting the United States. And at this point, it was a guy that was the Shah of Iran. And he had bought a whole bunch of United States guns and weapons and needed parts to keep them operating. So here's the loophole that was set up. And this almost certainly was done under Reagan's radar by his Secretary of Defense and a lot of the top generals. The government of the United States was selling gun parts to Iran, but getting Iran to send the money to the Contras. So it was never sort of hitting the American bank account. It was kind of being filtered through Iran and getting down to the Contras. But it was still money, right? And this gets really out of control and it gets busted and it blows up in the media, of course. America's breaking its own laws, funding all of this stuff. And all of these big people like Oliver North that KP mentioned earlier get busted for this stuff. And a lot of them lose their jobs. Some of them retire. There were some coke dealers in there too, right? Yeah, the international drug smuggling ring was involved in some of this stuff because they knew how to move stuff around in the jungles. They already had networks of trading. Now, they weren't like key figures, but they fit into the overall picture. What's interesting about the Iran-Contra scandal thing is that it all blew up under the end of Reagan's presidency, but everybody held liable for that was later pardoned by George Bush the first. This is the problem with Congress assigning war powers to the executive branch, then trying to control it by just shutting off the funding without shutting off the war powers. Hard agree. War Powers Act needs to get completely overhauled, and that's a fact. I'm not wearing the opinion hat. It actually blows my mind how dirty our governments are, and we know how dirty we are, and we still don't do anything about it. See, that's the thing. Like, I know that I'm probably sounding like I am being ridiculously critical of the United States government, and I kind of am. Because when you do stuff wrong, you have to own it. You can't just like sweep it under the rug and hope that it goes away, right? Going to sneak out to go paint on stream. Thanks for the lesson. Hey, thanks, Hunk. Much appreciated. Have a good paint. Hope everything goes well for you, my friend. Okay, so with all of this money still coming into the Contra, the Sandinistas are still holding out. Because even though the United States continues to funnel in guns and rockets... Runny fart. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you for the follow, my friend. Hope you're having a good one. Welcome, and make yourself at home. So, the Sandinistas are holding on. And they're still holding on because they still have so much popular influence. But in 1987, one of the things that the government's bringing in, or the United States government is bringing into the Contras are specifically rockets being used, or rockets that can target helicopters. This is the same sort of thing that the United States did in Afghanistan with the Mujahideen to try to help Afghanistan from falling to the Russians. The Russian attack helicopters were being used for a lot of really devastating suppression, and we sent them shoulder-mounted rockets that could take out these helicopters. Dirty government officials still see themselves as the good guys. They thought they were doing good deeds, and that ends justified the means. Yeah, that whole ends justify the means thing, that's a dangerous mindset. That really, really is. And that has been used so frequently as justification. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing right now. It's going to be better for everybody if I do this thing. Psychiatrists have a diagnosis for that? Yeah. So with the Contras having basically the great equalizer being these rockets that can take out Sandinista helicopters, the Contras sort of pull even with the Sandinistas in the war effort. And 88 and 89 are both really, really bad years in Nicaragua. Because once the whole Iran-Contra scandal blows up and America can't directly send money into the Contra anymore, they really start putting the international screws on Nicaragua. They put a massive trade embargo against Nicaragua. They put incredibly high sanctions on Nicaragua. They start blockading ports in Nicaragua. And this is literally cutting off the lifeblood of the country. And how is an economy going to run when nobody can trade with you and you can't even move stuff around your own country because of a foreign blockade? Friggin' Machiavelli. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. There you go. You'll find that many of the truths that we cling to depend greatly upon our point of view. There's a little nugget of nerddom for you. Anyway, so these sanctions and these embargoes really start hurting Nicaragua really, really badly. The country was already in debt. It had been in debt from the Somoza era. When Ortega took over, there was billions of dollars in debt already. Just another story of Central American Marxists and helicopters not getting along. Fair point. So even though Ortega's Sandinista government was very popular with the people, people started feeling that pinch. And the economy of Nicaragua flatlined, and their homeless issue, which had already been a problem going all the way back to the earthquake and even before the earthquake of 72, became a really big issue again. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people in a very small country that were homeless. And the United States knows that there is an election. And this election is coming in 1990. And they make an announcement. And the United States makes an official announcement inside of Nicaragua and propagandizes this and blows it everywhere. I mean, they're spreading this knowledge around all over the place. That if Daniel Ortega gets elected again in 1990, that the United States is not only going to continue everything that they were doing, they're going to make it worse. And at that point, Ortega loses the election because nobody in Nicaragua was going to be able to continue basically their way of life anymore. And even so, he still had a lot of support. It wasn't a blowout election. It was still a fairly close election considering how bad things were. But this is, if we look at our title again, this is the last of the rights. The new president is a conservative candidate, one that was a bit of a conciliatory candidate. Her name is Violeta Chamorro, and she looks like this. And I actually have a good picture. I like the fact that I found this picture. This is Violeta Chamorro, and she is being sort of inaugurated and gets the big sash. This is Daniel Ortega, who was right there putting it on her, recognizing that she was the legitimate president of Nicaragua. And so this is how a leader who was massively popular, but ultimately was having some problems in his country, turns power over to a democratically elected opponent, even though they don't necessarily want to. So this is a graceful transition of power here. Anyway, so Violeta Chamorro is a conservative, but again, I said she was a bit of a conciliatory conservative. So she was a conservative, but she was a anti-Somoza conservative. Her husband had owned a newspaper during the Somoza period of time, and she and he had both worked as one of the only outlets that was both conservative and speaking out against the Somozas. So even though she is a conservative, she is not the sort of old kind of dictatorial vein of conservatives. So when Chamorro becomes president, this is going to end the war between the Contras and the Sandinistas. But that's not necessarily the end of violence. There are sort of regional issues that are still going on. But at that point, it's a lot more to do with the poverty of the country of Nicaragua than it was the politics of Nicaragua. And of course, just the next year in 1991, when the Soviet Union falls apart, well, the United States doesn't really care about Nicaragua anymore at that point, and pulls out pretty much all the stops and just kind of goes home. What's with the sash thing in Latin America? Does that come from Spain? It does, but it actually goes all the way back to Rome. Roman officials got to wear special decorations and sashes. Dun, 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 dun. Lore 5 or Lores? Question mark. Thanks for the follow and welcome to the adventure. Okay, so there is the discussion. So we have gone left, right, talking about the Contra. I hope everybody gets the joke there. And that is the end of my discussion for the night. And I know that I've run a little bit long, but I felt like this was a pertinent discussion that needed to kind of be a little bit more fleshed out than just kind of the run through thing. And we had some great times. We had some good laughs. We had a raid. We got some new friends. Thank you all. But again, we don't have to be done. Just because I'm done with my yada, yada, yada thing doesn't mean that we have to go away. So for those of all of you that are new, you can click the little adventure hat. Look there. The 10K. Boom. Fidelia coming in with the choose your own topic for a viewer request episode. History of the Italian Mafia. Wow, Fid. Well done. Okay, so for those of you that don't have 10,000 points saved up, you can click the little adventure hat icon below you. If you've followed or if you've raided with me, you have enough points to ask me to do something. Did we cover Afghanistan or not? We have not specifically covered Afghanistan in the modern world. We've talked about Afghanistan a lot, but all in the ancient period. So let me give a bit of a rundown of what I do. I know we've got a lot of new people in the room. So again, my name is Shane. I teach history for a living, but I talk here on Twitch for fun. Funsies, right? So Ortega is president again. Not yet. He does become president again eventually. Lobster hands guy. What's in the news? Miryu Mio, there's a lot of stuff in the news. Do you have a specific request or do you want me to just kind of ramble? Not on time with stuff. That's fine. Yeah. The Twitch chat thingy has been a bit wonky lately. So would you like me to talk about a specific topic or you just want me to pick something and ramble? Because I can do both. Let me sip my tea. And I'm done. No TV news here, so even current event stuff is good. Well, that's specifically what I talk about is current event stuff. There's a lot in the news. And, well, I could revisit that. I could do headlines. Let's talk about Poland and Hungary. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with in-depth European politics, but let's talk about Poland and Hungary. So Poland is here and Hungary is here. You're in Poland. Well, there we go. That was a turn of luck. So in the last week or so, the EU, the European Union, has been passing some budgetary stuff that describes how funds are going to be collected and disbursed through the European Union. And the countries of Poland and Hungary had a lot of things to say. The Lucchesi crime family is the best crime family, and you're out. See you, Lord 5. Welcome again. We'll talk about them on the next viewer request episode. Okay, so Poland and Hungary had some things to say to the EU because inside of this budget discussion, there were some specific guidelines that were very directly worded that sort of limited the way that countries who were going to be involved in this budgetary situation had to run their countries. All right. So this was specifically running with how the rule of law works in the countries of the EU. And Poland and Hungary, their official governments both made a big stink about that because they felt like they were being singled out. The Polish and the Hungarians both have very strong centralized governments at the moment, and they didn't really like the way that the EU seemed to be poking at them. The Polish and the Hungarians eventually came to a sort of larger I guess the word shouldn't be concession, because it was more of an admission that this was going to happen. And did sign on to the budget, but there's some trouble brewing between the Polish and the Hungarian governments and the EU. And I'm not trying to say that Poland is about to bug out of the EU and turn into the next England and turn into like the Polish version of the Brexit, but there are deeper issues inside of the EU than just how they spend their money, and that is coming to a head, especially being exacerbated by the fact that everybody's economy right now is hurting so bad because of the pandemic. So keep an eyeball on that stuff. Exit poll. Oh, there's a good one. One of the things that Mac in a Lab Coat and I did while we were driving around in Greece a couple of summers ago was come up with all of these bad jokes about countries leaving the EU. There's like, it'll leave. Get it? Get it? So, I can't remember all of the other ones. I think we had them all written down at one point, but... we probably quicker assault our government than try to exit the EU. Well, I don't try to assume any of the opinions of the people in my chat. I try to report facts. If you want to hear an opinion, you can summon the opinion hat and I'll give you an opinion. But usually when I talk about the news, I try to hit the middle of the road. Isn't there some humanitarian stuff going on in Poland as well? There is. There has been sort of an international and even protest from within the country about some of the things that the Polish government is passing legally. So there has been some protesting going on there. Indeed, indeed. All right. So to get back to kind of a general statement here, on usually every other Tuesday, but sometime more frequently, we do viewer requests. And sometimes I have a poll that I open up and let everybody vote. And the topic for tonight, the Contra, was actually chosen by viewers. So this is a viewer request. But as you saw earlier, Fidelia turned in 10,000 points to name her own stream. And she chose the Italian Mafia. So our next viewer request stream is now the Italian Mafia. So that's what we'll be doing, not next week, but the week after. So that would be the week after Christmas. To tell the truth, you don't have TV because public TV is full of propaganda that isn't working on many people. Well, I can understand that, and I will say that, and again, I try to stay in the middle of the road, but I will tell you that I stand for free and open and honest conversation. I stand for equal rights. I stand for equality of individuals regardless of whatever they look like or, or whatever their genetics look like. I think that everybody is a person. And one of the things about humans is that we're all so much more alike than we are different. And in fact, for those of you that might be new, we actually have a fortune. So I don't know if you all know what fortune cookies are. I'm sure most people in the United States do, but fortune cookies give you these great little fortunes. And I found this in a cookie about 6 months ago, and I kept it because it just makes so much sense to me. And it has become the official fortune of Adventures in History. And it says, if I can get it to zoom in, focus. We all have a lot more in common than it seems. And I think we need to remember that. Because we're all people. And we're all on the same planet. And we only have one of them. And we need to start acting like that. Because we're all so much more alike than we are different. And we can do great things as humans. And the greatest things that we've ever done are still evident. But we've done bad things too. And we need to own up to that stuff. And we don't need to do it again, right? That's why history to me is so important. You learn from the junk that we did wrong, and then you don't do that junk again, right? It is amazing what people can do when we work together. We've built amazing things. We have created amazing pieces of art. We have written literature that can pull people's emotions. But humans never did anything wrong, except for all those things that we did wrong. Like murder and like all of the old horrible things that are still going on in the world. You upset your history teacher by writing history repeats itself on back of your history notebook. Yeah, well, humans stay the same and the situations around us change. And the choices don't always change, but the situations do. Humans are humans, and we've been humans for 220 something thousand years, and we all sort of still want the same things, right? Okay, so anybody else want to do any stuff for points? Anybody want to redeem any points? Like I said, if you have followed or if you have ever raided with me, you have enough points to do something. I wanted to make sure that everybody, regardless of how many points they had, could interact if they wanted to. So click the little adventure hat below you, and you can spend some adventure points. Otherwise, dun 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 dun. Visual Nomad, thank you so much for the follow, and welcome to the adventure. I'm gonna go look to see who might be around to see if we can raid somebody. How long do I usually stream for? Usually somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. I start at 1900 Central Standard Time, and I am usually done kind of sort of around 20-30 hours, or about an hour and a half. But sometimes I'm long-winded. Like right now, this is actually quite a long stream for me. But we had some raids, and I had a lot of interaction, and I like that, and I don't mind hanging around and streaming. But Tuesdays are our Fox the Ghost. You type there whatever you want. Random history fact about whatever you want. If you had I want a history fact about Rome, or I want a history fact about China, or I want a history fact about whatever. I'm glad you found the channel too. And I think it's a cool place. So you are welcome to come whenever you can. Hannibal. Oh, that's great. Hannibal Barca, part of the Barcid dynasty of Carthage. And if you go back to last Thursday's VOD, it would be Adventures in History, episode 36, I believe. We talked about the Carthaginians. Nope, it was 2 streams ago, 2 Thursdays ago. So what would that have been, 35? 30, yeah. Anyway, go back in the VODs. I did an entire stream on Carthage. So what we do on Thursday nights, every Thursday night, we show back up here, and I am covering history in chronological order. So, random fact about Hannibal. His name include like the Baal, the Bal in his name is actually a reference to the old Semitic / Phoenician god Baal, which is this Baal. And if you've ever been exposed to Christian or Jewish scripture, you'll know that Baal is one of the bad guys in what the Christians called the Old Testament, or what the Jewish people call the Tanakh. One of the evil gods that tempts the Israelites. And that is because Hannibal was from Carthage, and Carthage was a Phoenician colony of the city of Tyre originally, going back to about 1200 BC. So there's a random fact about Hannibal. Baal has some good loot drops. If you're playing Diablo, yeah. What about the Chinese in Rome? We have talked a little bit about trade that gets stuff from China to Rome. We will talk about China and Rome connecting a lot more in the next phase of history. So if you want to come back on Thursday night, we're actually going to be moving to a new phase of history that's going to be from about 200 BC to about 0 BC. And we're going to kick that off with a discussion about Confucianism. Confucianism is going to be one of the most influential theological and philosophical beliefs that is going to be the central authority of China for about the next 2,000 years. So, well, there you go. The horse phase. Jewish people had a bad habit of turning gods of anyone they fought with into demons. Well, because of that monotheism, they believed that everything that other people thought was a god was a demon. I personally don't talk about my personal religious beliefs on stream, but I do talk about religions, and we'll talk about religions. And I always try to cover those as historically based as I can, and what I would consider as, and I'm going to say this and it might sound weird, but as atheistic as possible. Like, I try not to get involved in the individual debate of beliefs. I try to take a position that I am a believer in this God or this belief or religion or whatever it is, and talk about it historically and try to explain the belief set. We've covered stuff in the past. We've talked about Buddhism and Hinduism and Zoroastrianism and Judaism and Jainism. My favorite era in history, oh, that's such a hard question, comes down to one of two. First one being the Principate era of the Roman Empire, which is from the reign of Augustus until about this group called the Severans, or the early Tokugawa period of Japan from about 1600 to about 1700. So yeah, either of those. Let's slip the puppy of war. So we want to see the puppy. Let me call the puppy real quick. Here comes the puppy. I don't know. The puppy might have the chicken. The puppy might not have the chicken. I thought she was coming. I heard her coming. Hold on. Let me call her again. Here she comes, and yes, she does have the chicken. Come and see me. Come here. Come here. Come and see me. Oh, you have such a big fan base, and they love you. Oh, and I don't know if you can see the waggly tail. Oh, there's the Kaylee. Hello. Hello. Oh, the puppy. Oh, yes. Oh, hello. Hello. Can I have the chicken? Can I have the chicken? Can you give me sugars? Hey, give me sugars. No, she wants the chicken so badly. Hey, Kaylee. Hey. No, you just want the chicken. Oh, I have taken the chicken and I have offended the puppy. So now she must go away. Yes, you can't take the chicken. You're supposed to witness the chicken and love the chicken, but not actually touch the chicken. Yes, I'll have to go apologize after the stream for taking the chicken from her. Oh yes, the chicken noises. The puppy is like, I came when you called. Now I want you to love me too. Yeah, she's usually a good puppy. Your dog came in when I whistled. I did not mean to cause a chain reaction of puppy activity. One of the great sins written in stone for Moses may be historically inaccurate. I'm not sure where that came from. Is there a love thy puppy? Thou shalt have no other gods except the chicken? That would be in the puppy commandments. The taking of the chicken. No, I will not do that, Vern. I know better. I will not do that, and jerk everybody around. I will also not say okay in a search engine name. So, all right. Anybody else have anything I did not actually mean to call the dogs. I usually mute the microphone, and I forgot to. So I have been called Google before. People in high school and college called me Google because I kind of know random knowledge that nobody should really possess. All right. Anybody have anything else? Anybody want to redeem any more points? Anybody want to ask any more questions or bring up anything else or say hi or do anything? Otherwise, I think we are going to go do a raid. Anybody? Negative. How is your historically date recall? I'm pretty good at dates. I can't remember every date, but I'm pretty good at dates. And I can usually guess within a little bit if I don't know specifically. My brain is real weird like that. Okay, I've gone on for almost 2.5 hours. That's way longer than I normally do. I did have one more thing that I wanted to mention before we go raid. I got something in the mail. It's Tuesday. So for those of you that know that have been around, I occasionally also build models on stream. And I got this lovely beauty in the mail today. It was supposed to get here the Monday after Thanksgiving, and it just got here today, which is 2 weeks and a day later. So, but I must say, this model brought to you all by you all. This was paid for with stream donation funds, and they are incredibly appreciated. And I'll be probably starting on this guy on Saturday or Sunday. Haven't figured it out when yet. You paint 1/10 scale busts. Very nice. I do a little bit of gunpla on the side. So keep an eyeball on the Discord. I'll make an announcement when I do that. I am going to go ahead, though, and wrap up for the night. Mostly because I'm getting hungry. I always get hungry during stream. And it's starting to like rumble. And I don't know if my microphone is picking it up or not, but my stomach is rumbling. There's drums in the deep, if you will. Does that involve gun katas? No, we're not doing Equilibrium. But that is a great movie, and I quite like it. Okay, so I think we're going to go raid. If I could do the gun katas, I totally would. But I would probably end up shooting myself in the foot. I am not what one would call a graceful individual. I did awaken something ancient. It's called hunger. It's very primal. Anyway, so we're going to go raid Incredible Hunk. He just started streaming recently. Not like today, but like recently in period of time. Friend of the channel, has been great. Gave gift sub, doing some painting. Give him some love. Throw some follows in his direction. He's trying to get that push to affiliate, which we all went through to begin with. So our battle cry, if you all are familiar, is just adventure. The word adventure. And if you have them, you can throw those sweet, sweet adventure hat emotes into the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to click this raid button. And we're going to head over to Incredible Hunk's stream. Thank you all so very much for hanging out tonight. Thank you to all of our new followers. Thank you, Pinky, for the big raid. It is much appreciated. And I will see everybody again, 1900 hours, this coming Thursday. We had a double puppy stream. Thank you all so very, very much. And I will see you around the bend.